We're not going to see Stroll in the top 5, that's for sure. Hell no.
I don't know. But KP thinks he's looking real good. So.
Sorry, I had to come back to that.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew I had to correct it.
We can't just let you get away with that one. I'm sorry.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Grid Gals episode 2, where we're going to debrief the Bahrain GP, the first race of 2023.
Yeah, it was a race, that's for sure. Actually, I'm not going to lie. Okay, we can get to the whole results in a second, but I actually enjoyed watching this one. Maybe the front wasn't as interesting, but I thought there was a lot of good midfield action, and I feel like you can start to see how the regulations have really scrunched up the midfield. I feel like I saw a lot more good battles, some disappointments, for sure. But I liked it. Also, I just also like being back, you know?
To me, it felt eerily like 2022.
In a great way.
Oh, here we go again.
You should be really happy you actually didn't watch this race with me.
I was
really obnoxious.
Yeah, I think I made the right call, choosing to watch it on my own, just to get a feel for what I was going to deal with this season.
Yeah, and okay, so I know we said we're going to wait technically 3 races to decide on your team that you're supporting, but I'd like to say I think I made a great call with my new driver.
Sure did.
Jack,
Yeah.
How are you feeling with who are you supporting? Team vibes, thoughts?
Questions or concerns?
I think the only thing this race confirmed for me is I probably won't be rooting for McLaren. Just from an overall results capacity, they did not perform well. And I was watching some of the pre-race interviews where one of the Sky Sports interviewers, he was on the track before the race, talking to some of the drivers, team principals, people that were down there, and he pulled aside Lando. And Lando was not happy with the performance of the car. He had nothing good to say. If anything, he felt maybe the car was going to be worse than last year, and he didn't really have high hopes that he was going to perform much better than he did in qualifying.
And I even heard during testing, or it might have been during practice, that he walked off and punched a wall in the McLaren garage, in his little room or something.
Jesus.
So we might be seeing him following Danny Rick's footsteps. Maybe as the 4th driver for Red Bull?
Oh my God. I just love that, this quote-unquote teen heartthrob is now going through his angsty phase. I want to see Lando a little pissed off. I feel like he's so happy-go-lucky, right? Not in the same way Danny was, but do you think this is the year that McLaren just crushes Lando's spirit?
I mean, and we always say it's a marathon, not a sprint, so one race does not dictate an entire season. But it was a grim start to the season for McLaren, and they're going to need to make some big adjustments. It's very clear that it's going to need to be big adjustments in order for them to start really competing towards the top of the midfield.
So here's the real question. Knowing the absolute shitstorm he created to get to McLaren, how do we think Oscar Piastri's feeling right now?
He was all smiles walking off the grid still, but I don't know how. I think, maybe he's hoping it'll get better, but it's really not looking good for McLaren. I think both their drivers are pretty depressed about it. Same from, the Mercedes garage. I don't know if you heard, Total Wolff talking before the race started. He seems pretty upset. But nothing like a little bit of karma for Piastri this race.
I can't get too mouthy over here because fucking Ferrari did a classic Ferrari. Charles Leclerc, I feel for that man.
Were you willing to sacrifice Leclerc to see Alonso on podium, though?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I came out strong in our last episode. I'm backing Alonso. Just A, love my old dogs, right? B, come on, he's so fun. We've talked about it. He doesn't have a villain era. That is just him. He straight up said that in Drive to Survive. He was there's heroes and anti-heroes. I'm totally fine being the anti-hero. I'm the problem, it's me, right? And I love that energy for him. And here's the thing that does kill me about, like, seeing Alonso's performance, though. I know last year at the beginning of the season, I was actually really, really hopeful for Aston Martin. I threw a lot of weight behind them. I thought they were going to come in third in the Constructors, partially because of Lawrence Stroll's investment in the team. And I really wanted to see that pay off for Seb. I feel like Seb, like, just missed it. You know? Like, I feel like based on... I know Alonso is going to... Like, he can perform even in subpar machinery and do a good job, I think, to the capacity of the car he's in, and I think he's always limited by the car. But based on Alonso's performance, like, it's so bittersweet to watch because I'm really happy to see him perform that way, but, like, I wish it was Seb.
Yeah, the infusion of the money, I feel like we finally saw this season in the car.
Yeah. And I just wish it had been last season so that I could have seen Seb on podium, but, you know, I'll take what I can get.
Can I voice one complaint with Aston Martin, though? The fact that Stroll was still driving this car, because in testing, he couldn't even get himself out of the car. Not testing, sorry. In practice, he couldn't get himself out of the car. And he wasn't able to turn during, I think, qualifying. You even saw him go off in the formation lap because he can't.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the strength in his wrist. They put metal screws in his wrists.
Well, and it was funny because the commentators were trying to make it seem like it was like a brakes issue. They're like, yeah, and that's why he went off during the formation lap. Like, no, I just don't think he should have been racing. I think they should have had the reserve driver.
Exactly.
And he fucking hit Alonso.
Yeah.
And they were not telling Alonso who it was.
No.
Which was so funny throughout the
Probably
race.
smart
Yeah.
on their call. Because you know Alonso, he would have made his life fucking miserable during that race if he knew.
Oh, and he's not putting up with that.
Yeah.
If it
hell
wasn't
no.
Lance Stroll, then he would have been replaced by the reserve driver easy if he had metal screws put in his wrist and can't properly turn the steering wheel.
I did think that was interesting about the commentators because at first they were really bashing Lance Stroll, and then they were like, well, we played it back, and it appears that Lance probably couldn't have seen him, and I don't know, the back and forth for me was
He
a little
rear-ended
much.
him. Like,
yeah.
What do you mean you can't see the car in front of you?
They were trying to say it was a brakes issue, and him, like, he wouldn't have been able to see, like, Fernando from that vantage point. I have no idea, and I felt like that was a little bit of a stretch.
It was just a lot of coincidences because I watched a little bit of practice and he wasn't able to turn the steering wheel then. So, like, it doesn't really line up with the excuses for the race.
Okay, the one thing I do want to talk about, I feel like we should talk about quali a little bit before we get into the race. I was actually very pleasantly surprised and kind of happy to see how Logan Sargent performed. I know that he got knocked out in Q2, but he had the exact same time as Lando Norris, and the only reason he didn't make it through was that Lando Norris got it first. You know, and so I feel like for his F1 debut, Williams, and I mean, we can talk about how they performed in the race in a minute, but I thought Williams looked surprisingly strong this year, at least, you know, for the first race. I mean, obviously we'll see if they can keep it up, but, you know, I feel like he's our American guy, right? Like, I'm kind of going to back him.
Yeah. And I feel like Albon really got his pace going in the race too. The new hair.
Oh,
I think
it.
I think he's kind of killing. I didn't really like the red. Like the silver blonde. I feel like he can kind of pull it off.
Yeah, Williams looked like they had a much better start to the season than they have the past couple of seasons. So very happy to see that.
I think the only thing of note for me in qualifying though was the fact that there are pieces flying off the Ferrari in like the first lap.
Oh my God, that was so embarrassing to see Leclerc go out and immediately like the session gets red flagged and they're like, oh, come back, Charles. And they've got like the little like tape and scissors in the garage and you're like, is there a more Ferrari way to start the season?
And to have him, when he just got out of the car during Q3, he was just done. He didn't even do the next flying lap that everyone else did. He just got out of the car and was fine with, what did he start, third?
Yeah.
I think the only other thing that I noticed was Hulkenberg seems to be sliding back into that seat, ready to rack. I mean, he made it all the way to Q3.
Also,
Pretty good.
I'm not going to lie, the Haas livery, those are sharp. Their car looks great this year. I mean, like, I know we sort of love Haas as the American team, sort of don't because it's Haas, but I thought the cars looked great. I do agree. I think Hulkenberg looked great for having a year off, or what, 2 years off at this point?
Yeah.
It's been a minute. And it very reminiscent of Magnussen last season of just being able to slot right back into the car. And I think going to give him a little bit more of a run for his money earlier on in the season than I was expecting.
And they were so combative back in their day. I'm surprised that they've been getting along so well. I think truly Magnussen's kind of just chilled out since he's had his kid and everything. But I was expecting a little spice from the two.
I did like the little nod to that in Drive to Survive, where, you know, the whole suck my balls.
Yeah.
That was cute. I feel like they addressed it.
Yeah.
And also, can we talk about, Jack, I know you're our Twitter queen, but Haas had the cutest tweet, I think you sent it to me, of Magnussen's daughter, on the car, and they put the little headphones on her. I was dying. It was so cute.
She's so stinking cute, and you can tell he's such a cute dad. Like, he's really invested in his family, which is really cute to see.
One surprise I did find in qualifying, Pierre Gasly absolutely messed that up. I mean, literally qualified 20th, back of the grid. He just, you know, this was his first quali, his first time in a car that wasn't a Red Bull car.
Yeah, I think he actually got a lap time deleted, which was pretty common in this race.
I feel like there's a lot of track limits this weekend, but what I will say about Pierre, like, okay, didn't show up for quali, you know, got lap time deleted, obviously, like, not probably the start he wanted to the weekend. I feel like he really made up for it in the race. I was really impressed with his comeback. I mean, starting back of the grid and making it to, where did he end up? Like P9, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was definitely, he was in the points.
And really impressive. First race again with Alpine, a constructor that's like not Red Bull backed for the first time in his career. And compared to his teammate, can we talk about Ocon for a second?
Oh, poor guy.
The number of penalties this man racked up. I think it was something like he totaled 35 seconds in penalties across the race.
Yeah. Still beating Norris, though, I will mind you.
He could not catch a break, because I think the first penalty he had was apparently he wasn't in the starting position correctly. It was a little too far forward.
Which, like, rookie move.
Yeah, although it's funny because some of his, when he was commenting on the penalties, I think by the time he got the third one, he was like, why are they just calling things? I've always done these things. Ooh. And I was like, I don't know if you've always been speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah.
Like, that seems like something they're pretty fair about.
I want to see how they serve the time penalty, too, because that was the second one. So he got the penalty for not starting in the correct place in his grid, which, like, you have a team of engineers also around your car when you are placing the car in the grid. So, like, I guess it's after the formation lap. Maybe that's the issue.
Yeah. When he pulled into the slot, they're saying he was a little too far forward, maybe?
And then he served his time penalty, but didn't serve it correctly.
Well, because they were saying that and that one I don't think was his fault. I think it was the team's, because they were basically saying you have to serve the full 5 seconds with no one touching your car.
Yep.
And I think they had some fans or something to like try and cool off his brakes.
Oh, and that counted.
Yeah, you can't even do that.
Right.
Or it was something along those lines. I don't know if it was exactly that.
So definitely not his fault.
No, they were basically like, okay, well, you get another 10 seconds because you didn't serve the 5 seconds correctly. I lost track after that. The 20 seconds that came after, I have no idea what they were for.
It's for speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah.
When he was coming into reserve.
Coming out.
Oh, my God.
Or coming out, yeah. Coming in or coming out, yeah. Speeding in the pit lane.
So he came back, reserved like the 5 second time penalty, which I think was then up to 10.
Yeah.
Because it was a penalty on top of a penalty, and then speed in the pit lane. So I think he got handed a 15-second time penalty for that.
Also, don't they have a setting on the steering wheel for pit lane? So, I mean, maybe this is just my ignorance talking. I don't understand how you can speed in the pit lane if you... Maybe it's just like a timing of when you hit that button or something. I don't know.
No idea.
Weird.
But it was a cluster.
And still finished in front of Lando.
Yeah.
Well, at least Lando finished, because I'm not going to lie, I think he pitted, 5 or 6 times this race?
I think they were using it for testing for the car at that point. That's what the commentators were saying, which makes sense because he was a full minute behind Ocon, I'm pretty sure, by the end of the race.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm shocked that he did finish.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I guess good if they can at least collect some data and try to salvage it, but real rough for McLaren there.
But even before Piastri DNF'd, Lando had to go in the pit lane on, I think it was lap 11, to check out some issues that they were seeing with the car. And that's when I knew it was probably going to be a bumpy race. If he was already having to go in lap 11, And I know Piastri his car had to be retired because of gearbox issues. They thought it was something electrical related.
They changed his steering wheel.
Yeah.
They like, gave him a new steering wheel, and they like plugged it in, whatever you do with the steering wheel to put it in. I don't know. And it still didn't work. They had to retire the car. The only DNF of the race, though, which is surprising for the first race. Oh. I forgot.
Ocon DNF'd, actually.
I don't know that he DNF'd. I think they just retired the car.
Okay, they might have, but let's talk about the real heartbreaker DNF.
I forgot about that.
Oh, honestly, who cares about Piastri? Right? Like,
True.
Charles Leclerc, okay? This poor man, like, in the camera, like, zooming up on him and just the pure, like, agony on his face killed me. And the fact that Sainz, at 1.2, I mean, he couldn't even defend against Alonso. He was basically like, if I try to push more in the defense, I'm not sure this car will make it.
Yeah, I'm sensing a Sainz boot from the Ferrari team after this year.
Well, but I don't think that was his fault. I think
know,
it was
like,
car performance. He was basically like, if I try to extract more from this car, I don't think I'll finish the race because I don't think this car is capable of it. Which, considering Leclerc DNF'd,
yeah,
I don't think he's bluffing. Like, I mean, he's still...
agreed. But I think, like, even from last year, I mean, you compare, like, Leclerc to Sainz, it's not... I mean, I can say the same thing with Verstappen and Checo. I think Ferrari's going to try to pick up Lando for next year.
It's a hot take.
I think I need to see a little bit more of the season to get a feel for that and get some more confidence that it isn't the team, the strategy calls, or the car. Because I would say he's performed pretty consistent with Leclerc last year.
I think Leclerc outperformed him, but I don't think he outperformed him by, like, leaps and bounds. Where
do we want to talk about outperforming?
Yeah, like where there's so much
God.
more of a gap between Checo and Max in my mind than there was between Sainz and Leclerc.
I agree.
Yeah, that's fair.
Although so obviously the car didn't perform super well this weekend for Ferrari. Disappointing start to the season. I'm really interested to see how their new team principal settles in and how that impacts their overall strategy, because I feel like so many of their problems last year kind of came down to strategy calls. I feel like the car last year was actually very capable of delivering results. I mean, they did still have some issues, right? Like, we did see a couple DNFs, especially at the beginning of the season, for both Leclerc and Sainz for mechanical issues. You know, like, Sainz's car literally caught fire. Like, we've seen this before with Ferrari, but I'm really interested to see how this new team principal, formerly with Alfa Romeo, changes the strategy. And I know Leclerc has worked with him. Leclerc raced with him when, before it was Alfa Romeo, it was Sauber, and he really likes him. They work really well together, so I'm hopeful that there's a better team dynamic, because I feel like that was the other thing about last year with Ferrari. They just, like, everyone was so disheartened. But speaking of strategy, I think one thing that was cool to see that I'm really excited to see more of this season, now that he does have a car that can perform, is how Alonso handles strategy, like, on track. And I think that was one thing that even hearing the commentators talk about, they were like, some of the best drivers do this because they can drive the car with so much less of their brain that they can spend their other energy genuinely aware of what else is happening on the track and strategize on track. And they were like, Alonso does this, Hamilton does this, Michael Schumacher, not Mick, did this. So sorry Mick's not on the grid, but that was cool to see in action. And I think his battle with Russell, like, it was so evident that he was very strategic in that. And it was great racing to see.
That was a really fun little back and forth that they had. And, a little bit of a close call there at one point, but just some really strong defensive and offensive driving without making any contact. And how exciting to watch.
Is that because you're now officially a Mercedes fan?
No, Jack.
I don't know. I don't know if I can do it. I mean, obviously, I said I would wait till the third race at least, but it's looking that way.
Oh my God. KP, how do you feel?
I'd rather you be an Aston Martin fan. I would die if you supported Stroll.
Okay, Stroll actually, I hate to say it as much as it pains me to say it, he came in what, like P6?
Yeah, he was definitely up there. But part of me is like, how much of it is the car versus the driver? Because
The car's looking good.
the car's looking good. I mean, we obviously saw that with Alonso, although he fairly battled and won for third, which was amazing to see. I don't know if you guys watched the team reactions. You would have thought he
Yeah.
got first. It was so cool. I was really happy for them.
I'm very excited for them because there's some. I mean, just the performance of the car, that engineering team has done an enormous upgrade from where they were at. And so it's cool that they now have a driver who can get them on the podium, which is awesome.
Okay, well, to be fair, they had a driver who could have gotten them
Okay,
on the
yes,
podium.
that's
It just was the car last year. But yes, I'm still very happy for Alonso.
Sorry. Wasn't a dig at Sab. Wasn't a dig at Sab. You know I love Sab.
Let's just say you'll wait 2 more races before you announce. Like, I don't think I'm emotionally ready for you to become a Mercedes fan.
Well, speaking of your Red Bulls, though, I did hear the commentators, our faves, Crofty and Kravitz, talking about how, yes, this was Max's first ever win at Bahrain. It was Red Bull's first ever 1-2 at Bahrain. But they said that whoever wins the first race of the season, I don't know.
Second in the championship.
Yeah, I don't know the exact stat of like how
Yeah.
many times this has happened, but they were like, so maybe it does bode well for Leclerc and Sergio and, Alonso at this point.
I mean, I loved the Red Bull 1-2 to start the season, obviously. But I will even say, like, I got a little bored watching. I did switch, like, screens so I could watch other parts of the race because it is a little boring if it's just, like, Max just taking off. I mean, like, the lead he had on everybody else was just, like, embarrassing. So
I did like that part in Drive to Survive, though, when they ask him, they're like, Max, do you ever get bored of winning? And he was like, no, I get bored of not winning. Which,
fair.
I mean, is his attitude to a T. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's why you like him so much, but...
One of my friends was texting me. He's like, "What kind of drugs is the Red Bull car on?" I mean, it looked that good compared to some of the other cars on the track.
Yeah, so I'm hoping...
McLaren.
I want to see the other cars make good advances to at least, like, bring a battle, I would say. Like, obviously still want to see Max win, but it's not going to be a fun season if they, like, completely drive away with it.
Oh my
Pun
God.
intended. But I mean, that's what we saw for years with Mercedes. Granted, we weren't really watching them, but I know, like, Mercedes got a lot of heat because they kept on winning. And same, like, Red Bull back in the day when Seb was winning all the time. Like, everyone hated him because they're like, okay, this is boring. Like, we're just watching you win. But I mean,
It's a
haters
long
gonna hate.
season. It's a long season.
So I promise I won't say that I'm a Mercedes fan yet. I haven't made the decision 100%. But did just want to comment on Lewis and Russell. I know Russell out-qualified Lewis, but it seemed like Lewis had a really good race. He made up a couple places, finished fairly strong for how it looked like the Mercedes was performing. So,
I mean, he finished higher than Russell.
oh yeah, by 2 places. So
Yeah.
I think that, bodes well for his season if that continues to happen. Obviously, would still love to see him win some races, but yeah, I like that he's beating Russell. I just can't stand when Russell's beating him.
I don't think we're going to go another season without seeing a Hamilton win.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a Hamilton win this season. I feel like, again, it's so early, right? Like, I think the car has potential. I don't think the car is there yet. But I think given, again, like, the Mercedes team is a force to be reckoned with, right? Like, we saw their car at the beginning of last season and how terrible it was. And then towards the end of the season, it was capable of winning races. It wasn't Hammy that won it, but, I'll be interested to see how they evolve.
You know what we didn't do this year?
Our predictions.
Our predictions.
I know.
We did them before the season started last year, so I feel like doing them one race in would be like a little bit of cheating, but I feel like it makes it a little bit more accurate.
Better late than never.
Yeah.
We should do them. We should pull together our predictions this week, and then on next week's episode, since we have a break, which I'm kind of bummed, right? Like, the next race is Saudi Arabia. They're already in Bahrain. Like, why don't they just do it next weekend? I don't know. We have a weekend off. We should do predictions.
It's a great idea.
Love that. You know who's going to be at the bottom of my list?
Well, careful. Again, who knows? It's a long season.
Yeah, is it going to be Stroll this time? Because
No.
he is looking pretty good this year. race-wise.
I will leave personal feelings about the drivers' personalities out of my rankings this year. I'll look a little bit more objectively at how the vehicles are doing and the drivers themselves. I mean, but something, we're not going to see Stroll in the top 5, that's for sure. Hell no.
I don't know. But KP thinks he's looking real good. So. Sorry, I had to come back to that.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew I had to correct it.
We can't just let you get away with that one. I'm sorry.
Great, she can put him on her list.
Well, ladies, any final thoughts on Bahrain?
Let's keep it up.
Oh my god.
Hopefully this isn't just a repeat of the 2022 season. I'd like to see some more, some differentiation in there.
Well, Red Bull did get hit with a $7 million fine at the end of last season, so we can't forget that. And clearly it doesn't look like it's impacting them at all this year, but the cost cap shrinks. So we'll have to see how their catering budget adds up and if they just put a lot of extra pickles on their sandwich this year. I feel like we could see some spice with Red Bull in terms of their accounting this year as well. And who knows about their little driver lineup? I'll be interested to see if Checo survives.
I mean, Ricardo's waiting to take that spot for sure. And wouldn't Jackie just be so happy about that?
Over the moon. It would make my day. Make my year.
For sure.
Well, thanks so much for listening. We loved having you here. For links to all our social media, you can go to gridgals.com. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, and please remember to like and subscribe.
And that's the checkered flag for this session. We'll catch you back on the grid next week.